Hi, everyone, and welcome to the RavenCast. This is the episode for January 27th, and my name is Adam Erickson, and I am here with my dear friend and colleague at Raven, Suzanne Ross. Hi, Suzanne.
Hi, Adam.
Suzanne, we have just finished our first week of the Trump presidency.
Yay!
Congratulations for making
You
it through.
you too.
Yes, awesome. We had the inauguration, and we've had all kinds of weird things happening. One of the weirdest things that has happened in this first week is the phrase alternative facts. Have you heard this phrase?
I have.
Yes.
It has fascinated me.
Yes, I wrote a little article about it. It came up because Trump was concerned about the crowd size at his inauguration. And apparently the media was saying that his crowd size really wasn't that big. And, Trump is all about size of things. And so he was wanting to say, actually, it was really big. And so he sent Kellyanne Conway and Sean Spicer out to talk about how big the crowds actually were, according to Trump. And this is where Kellyanne Conway said, when she was challenged by it, said, we're looking at alternative facts
Right.
that support our position.
And the interviewer kind of freaked out a little bit about it.
Oh, we have all been freaking out. Like
Yeah.
the media has been freaking out about alternative facts. How can we trust the Trump administration when they are talking about alternative facts? And everybody is saying, well, progressives are all up in arms for that reason, and also saying that she is outright lying to us
Yeah.
with these alternative facts. And that may be the case. There are alternative facts to things.
Yeah.
There are different ways to view the facts, I guess. And so we could give Kellyanne Conway the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they saw the crowds at different times and they seemed bigger at one time or another. I don't know.
Or they could have been counting sort of online attendance. I mean, there were all these different ways of counting attendance, you know. I just think that Trump took offense, as he is prone to do, by the picture that compared his inauguration crowd on the mall with the Obama crowd. I think for Obama's first inauguration, I think they were comparing.
Right.
And he was upset about that because he thought it was an attempt to delegitimize his presidency, and naturally, especially it being on the front page of the Times, it was.
Right.
But okay. But I'm intrigued by Kellyanne saying alternative facts and the way that was interpreted, because I didn't watch the interview. You did. So you can correct me here if I'm wrong. But it seems to me that she wasn't going on the show and saying, oh, well, you're telling the truth about this and I'm lying about it.
I don't know. I don't know. It's hard for me to. We're living in a world where it's hard for me to interpret what is actually happening. Right before if you watch it, right before she says alternative facts, she does this thing, and people not watching on video won't be able to tell this, but she does this thing where she looks down, and it's almost as if she's saying, I can't believe I'm about to say this. And then she looks up and she's like, alternative facts.
Really?
Yes, it's really weird. So
Or-
I don't know if she's like, I don't know what the deal is with it. But I also think, like, the point of my article was this whole emphasis on alternative facts. I want us to live in a more truthful world where we can speak truth to one another, truthfully to one another.
Absolutely.
But this emphasis on alternative facts is a scandal. And the way that Gerard talks in part about scandal is the distraction. It's this stumbling block that you keep wanting to walk across, but you always stumble over it, and it distracts you from the bigger objects that are out there, the bigger issues that are out there. And so my article was about how, while we're all talking about alternative facts, There are policy issues happening this week, all every day, multiple policy issues. And so focusing on alternative facts is a distraction from the bigger things that are happening. That's in part what Scandal is all about.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. But what intrigues me here is that is why progressives got scandalized by that, by her saying that,
Right.
because in my mind, nobody gets on TV and says, I'm a liar. Nobody does that. But even if you are a liar, you don't get up there and say, okay, now I'm going to lie about this. And that's why I disagree with you. What I think what she was pointing to give her the benefit of the doubt, which I think we would be better off doing, and we would become scandalized less often if we gave each other the benefit of the doubt. What she was saying is a rather true statement, is there's lots of facts out there, and facts don't tell you the truth of a situation. A fact is just a fact, and it can be disproved later on. It can be a fact that you don't want to include in your version of the world because it's uncomfortable and disconcerting, or it might be a fact that just supports the way you think already and you just embrace it.
Well, and that's the thing that's so important to realize in this, because we tend to be demonizing Kellyanne Conway and the Trump administration for doing this. But mimetic theory, I think, helps us understand that this is not because they are evil, it's because they're human.
Yes.
We all do this. We all want to be admired, adored. We all want to consider ourselves as good people. And so when it comes to facts, we all have this relationship with the facts that tend to support what we already believe and what we already think about ourselves as good people. And we don't do this intentionally. It's unintentionally. It's just the way that we automatically filter facts to support who we are. And tragically, mimetic theory also helps us understand that as humans, we tend to identify who we are and the facts about who we are over and against somebody else who is bad, or who we have to set up as a straw man, a bad man, in order to feel good about ourselves in opposition to them.
Sure, exactly. Because if I'm telling the truth and what you're saying doesn't fit what I'm saying, the only possible conclusion, and I'm saying that in air quotes, is that you're a liar.
Right.
It couldn't possibly be that I'm telling an incomplete story, or a story that is not yet able to include your version. And I just want to point out, we are moving beyond the conversation about how many people attended Trump's inauguration, because that's really a trivial, silly discussion. You and I right now are discussing something a little broader, which is our relationship to facts and how we construct our sense of self through perhaps a disingenuous, incomplete relationship.
And here's where the struggle comes with us progressives who are rightfully so concerned about justice issues, is that we can use the facts in a way that, as a weapon, in a way to beat our opponents over the head with. And this, I think, is the exact same. This is human. This is what each side of these kinds of debates are stuck in a way of trying to do good things. I think,
absolutely, yeah.
In a way that uses truth as to bat somebody over the head with, facts to bat somebody over the head with.
Well, absolutely. And, I was thinking about that, how comforted I felt actually by seeing the small size of the crowd at the inauguration. My version of the facts are that that smaller size of the crowd comforted me that Mr. Trump does not have the support of the majority of the country. Now, that's a big extrapolation, I admit, from looking at how many people were standing on the National Mall that day. But what what wanting to say is that if I become enraged because Trump does not also accept that he doesn't have a mandate, what is happening to me? Because if I'm right and he doesn't have a mandate, really my problems are over. He's going to shoot himself in the foot if he thinks he has more of a mandate than he does. He will be politically ineffective, and he will eventually cripple himself. That's how politics works, right? So I can get hysterical that he doesn't agree with me, and get all worked up about it, or I can say, well, if it really is true that he doesn't have a mandate, what am I getting worked up about? Right? Is that making sense, or not? It's my relationship to that fact that I'm trying to get at.
Yes, yes. I think people are just we're in this space of transition. We're in this space of what is Trump actually going to do? Do we actually need to listen to what he says, or do we not pay attention to anything that he says? Do we just focus on his policies? It's a scary place to be, and it's hard to know right now how to respond to that sense of fear. The problem often with getting stuck in the fear is that you just you make things more powerful than they really are.
Well, exactly, and that's my concern in all of this, and yours as well. Is if we're going to be a effective and an opposition that has integrity, then we need to have a better grip on reality, on what the facts really are about what we need to be worried about.
We are.
And
yeah. Go ahead.
Well, and just how we need to respond. What's the most effective way to respond?
Yeah. And that's the difficulty that mimetic theory also points to. We are in a mimetic crisis.
Yeah.
And it's hard to see reality. It's hard to see the truth. It's hard to see the facts when you are in a mimetic crisis and people are pointing fingers all over the place, the finger of blame all over the place.
Rivalry distorts reality.
So what is
that? Is
yes.
Just that is a fact.
Yes, rivalry distorts reality. So what is the answer?
Yeah. So, yeah. Try to not get overexcited about these things. I was reading what I thought was excellent advice in an article about Joe Biden and how Joe Biden dealt when he was in the Senate, how he learned not to become scandalized by people. And can I share that with you? People may have heard this story because apparently Joe tells this a lot. And I call him Joe because he's a regular guy, and I think he'd like to be called Joe.
I call him Uncle Joe.
Uncle Joe, there you go.
Yeah.
I think he does like that. But he, this section, the author, Jonathan Alter, starts recounting this narrative by saying, Biden clearly loathes the new president. And so Joe Biden tells a story about when he was a freshman senator and he had to deal with another person, a politician who he clearly loathed, and that was Jesse Helms, the arch-conservative North Carolina Republican. And Helms at the time was ripping into a piece of legislation around disability protection. And Joe got insane. Uncle Joe was just going crazy about it. And he was meeting with the Senate Majority Leader, Mike Mansfield, at the time, and just letting rip into Helms. And Mansfield says to him, you may not know this, but Jesse Helms and his wife have adopted a 9-year-old child with disabilities that nobody else wanted. And he said to Uncle Joe, a young man at the time, here's my advice. question a man's judgment, not his motives. So Biden goes on to say that his approach to Trump is guided by that. And I'm just going to read the quote here of Biden speaking. He says, "It's one thing to say, I think the proposal on the following is a serious mistake. I think it's going to do the following damage. It's another thing to say, this guy's an effing idiot and he's an egomaniac who's whatever." End quote.
So there's a separation from the policy that you may disagree with from the person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think he's clearly pointing out the pitfalls of labeling somebody. If you say someone's an egomaniac or they're a liar, that becomes the full content of who they are to you in your dealings with them. And that is not a constructive way to engage with someone, especially someone who we believe is sensitive to how people think about him.
Right, right. And you are conveying that reality to this person. So there's a sense in which this could become a prophecy fulfilled.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So that's how they're going to react to you when you label them that way.
Yeah, see, I told you were against me.
Right.
And see, and there you are. It's me. You've got something against me. And that is the trap. Clearly, Biden was given good advice on how to be an effective legislator in a group of people who you are going to disagree with, and they make you crazy, some of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's sounding to me like a much better way to do this instead of demonizing the other is to project goodness upon the other, to project, listen, I know that we are on the same team. We're trying to do what's best for our nation, our fellow human beings, what have you.
Yeah.
These are the ways that I disagree with you, or these are the ways that I agree with you about how we can go about doing these things.
Well, you're giving your opponent the benefit of the doubt. And then what that does is when we say rivalry distorts reality, what happens is if you get caught up in the rivalry, then the piece of legislation just really disappears from view. What you claim you were focused on, the fact, which is this piece of legislation, something real and tangible, just becomes irrelevant because all you care about now is just kicking this guy's butt and making sure he loses.
Right. Right. It becomes about the rivalry, not about the object.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's when we're talking about relationships to reality, relationships to facts. When you succumb to these personal rivalries and you begin to define yourself against that other person, you have to keep them in that box in order to keep your sense of self secure. And then, reality is the casualty.
Right. Yep.
Of that.
So hopefully reality will not be a casualty.
And isn't it interesting that Trump was a reality TV star?
Yes.
In this context, I don't know what that means. It just popped into my head.
Yes, yes. So, wow, yes, reality and alternative facts and truth and relationships and rivalry. Thank you, Suzanne, for this conversation. And thank you, everybody, for listening in and watching in. You can find us on iTunes and on Stitcher Radio. Please feel free to leave a comment and rate us there. And we would love to know what you think about these alternative facts. Leave a comment below here at the Raven Foundation website. So thank you again for joining us. And until next week, grace and peace be with you. Bye-bye.